Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, 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 hello. I'm trying to find a particular article for you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We have to have this talk, but I'm trying to find a specific article so that we can talk about this. Let's see. There it is. That's the one I wanted to talk about. All right. Good evening to the evening edition of Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. It is cold outside, and I've just recently got in from the cold. It's about 40 degrees here in the DMV, and hopefully you are sharing this broadcast because it's a pretty important one. We're going to continue to talk from Wealth Can't Wait, and we're going to finish up the thinking section, and we're going to introduce you to the seven habits of wealth. And then also, I'm introducing a new book on Fridays, The Entrepreneur's Playbook. Last season, we talked about our score, getting our credit together in those pieces. And this season, I want to start us off with those of you who are business persons and entrepreneurs. These are proven principles for entrepreneurs. All right. Yep, Pastor Ben, you're rubbing it in. You're wearing a t-shirt there in South Florida. Yep, and I got about 2, 3 layers on. So, the Entrepreneur's Playbook is where we're going to be for the first part of this season. If you want to check this book out, you can check it out from your local library or you can order it online. It is by Leonard C. Green, The Entrepreneur's Playbook. And he covers 18 principles that entrepreneurs need. Let me put it up here again if you're screenshotting. All right, he covers 18 principles for entrepreneurs. This is aspiring and current. All right, so we're going to get into this. We're just going to do the introduction. We're going to finish up the thinking section of Wealth Can't Wait. But before we begin either of these, we have to talk about, since this is Finance Friday, we have to talk about the government shutdown. In case some people don't know or some people don't get it, the U.S. government, the federal government, employs, I think it's one of the largest employers of African Americans in this country. So if you already look at the state of African Americans in terms of employment and opportunity, and you add that to shutting down the government, which employs a huge chunk of the African American population in the United States, when they say shutdown is about to get worse for federal workers, just replace federal workers with black people. Okay? This is serious because so many people are going to be affected by this. But what I do know about black people is we are resilient. We will make a way out of no way. We will survive. Those who don't know how to make a way out of no way, they're going to go stone flat cuckoo on President Trump in a few weeks if this shutdown does not end. There were reports, allegedly, from the Democratic members of Congress where this man has said that he is willing to hold the government hostage for years in order to get what he wants. What is this boiling down to? This is boiling down to his case is coming to a close with the FBI and with the Mueller probe. He knows he's probably going to be convicted of several crimes, all right? One senator, one Democratic senator, I believe, has already filed the articles of impeachment. So he knows that his time is short. And he's going to, if they don't stop him, if the Republicans don't stop him, he's going to inflict more damage on the American people because he knows his time is up and he has nothing to lose by doing so. All right? So I need the people who are in Washington to like wake up, to pay attention that this man is despotic and not mentally stable. And he's going to be wrecking this country in a way that Republicans are not going to be able to come back from. Hear me well, Republicans. If you continue to let this man wreck the government out of spite, y'all are not going to be able to come back from anything. All right. So I want to read this article to you. This is from Christopher Wilson, reporting through Yahoo News. The shutdown is about to get worse for federal workers. And I'm reading this particular article because it has lots of fact and data in it. There's a whole lot of other articles out there that are kind of opinion based, but this is talking about data. All right. Nearly 400,000 workers have been off the federal payroll since the government shutdown began at midnight on December 22nd. Listen to this data, all right? Their last checks covering the middle 2 weeks of December went out January 3rd, but the workers will not receive their regular pay on January 17th for the pay period ending Saturday, potentially forcing them to put off bills or reduce expenses. Now, here's some data. 4 out of 10 Americans have less than $400 in the bank to cover emergencies. Notice the word there, Americans, which usually refers to the white Americans. Because we already know that these figures are even lower for people who are African American in this country. We already know that, all right? While most workers receive back pay after previous shutdowns, there is no guarantee that will be the case this time around. Some contract workers, including janitors, security guards, and administrative staff, won't receive back pay at all. Who is that? Who is that? Have you ever been to DC? Do you know who the administrative staff, the security guards, and the janitors usually are? They're people of color. Congress has to pass and the president has to sign legislation that specifically authorizes the government to pay federal employees for the time they were on furlough. Officials of unions representing federal workers are concerned about receiving makeup pay, citing President Trump's recent decision to freeze a scheduled salary raise via executive order. Now, these people complained the entire time that President Obama was in office about how much he was using his executive order power. Now, you have a not sane, despotic leader that you have chosen to give executive order power to, and he's just using it for anything. It's even possible that essential personnel such as TSA agents and law enforcement officers who are required to perform scheduled shifts to avoid losing their jobs will not be paid for the hours they've worked during the shutdown. There's not another company in the United States of America that could force employees to go to work and not guarantee them their pay. What is new? This is what America was built on, forcing people to work and not paying them. David Fitzpatrick, a representative for the American Federation of Government Employees Union, said this: "There's no place, none, zero. What company would you work for that said, well, you'll have to come to work, but there's no guarantee I'll pay you?" When asked during the press conference Friday about a safety net for federal workers losing pay, Trump said, quote, "The safety net will be a strong border because we're not going to be safe. I'm not talking about economically, but ultimately economically. I really believe that these people believe in what we're doing." Fitzpatrick himself is personally stuck in limbo. He was supposed to retire from the National Park Service on December 30th, but with the shutdown, he's been unable to file the necessary paperwork, so he's not even sure if he's still a federal employee. When he attempted to find out whether he could complete the process during the shutdown, the personnel officer he needed to speak with had also been furloughed. As as an unintended consequence, good evening, no coincidence. As an unintended consequence of the shutdown, a pay freeze for top administration officials that had been in effect since 2013 expired, meaning that cabinet officers, deputies, and other top administrators will receive raises of around $10,000. Isn't that interesting? So everyone else's pay is getting frozen. People are being put on furlough. People don't even know their retirement paperwork is eligible to be filed, but the top administration officials get $10,000. This is insanity. CNN reported Friday that hundreds of TSA screeners are calling in sick at major airports, some to go work other jobs that can pay them. So talk about border security. You're worried about a border, but now you're putting all of our airports in danger because now you have the TSA worker saying, listen, I got to go make me some money, so I'm going to call in sick and I'm going to find me another temporary job. The shutdown is also an impediment to workers hoping to make ends meet with temporary jobs. Steve Reeves, the union president for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, told Yahoo News that moonlighting and other contract gigs during the shutdown requires managerial approval. Oops. So you mean to tell me if you work for the government, there may possibly be some restrictions as to you going out to be and start an entrepreneurial endeavor. Wow. The problem is that most of the staff need to approve those requests are also furloughed, and approvals are what he called more hit than miss. Another possible problem for FEMA is the risk of missing bill payments and receiving credit score downgrades as a result. So, not only are you jacking up people's paychecks, not only are you holding the nation hostage over something that cannot be built. That's what even some of the engineers who are trying to work on this said, that what the president is actually asking for is impossible because of where they would have to try to build the wall, from my understanding. Not only are you messing with people's money, but now you're messing with people's credit. Now my husband and I went through this a couple years back because, not because of the government, but, personal issues. So we know what can happen when somebody messes with your money and they mess with your inability to pay things on time, which therefore affects your credit. So these people could possibly get credit score downgrades as a result of all of this. Reeves explained that many FEMA workers, most of them making $52,000 to $75,000 a year, have security clearances which could be revoked if their credit score falls. So again, this is just a domino effect that is occurring. You mess with people's money, you mess with their credit. You mess with their credit, you mess with their security clearance. You mess with their security clearance, they can't keep those jobs because you have to have a certain level of security clearance in order to be in them. All right? So, Reeves said the repeated shutdowns in recent years and the lack of job security have resulted in the loss of many FEMA employees, weakening the agency. This is just one piece of it, okay? Here's another piece of it. The shutdown is affecting nearly every arm of the government, and 95% of NASA employees have been furloughed. That doesn't mean any astronauts will be left adrift. The accepted employees include those who are performing work essential to prevent imminent threats to human life or the protection of property, according to a memo from the agency. This includes tracking, operation, and support of the International Space Station. So, people get to stay on and be employed to watch out for space, but they don't get a chance to stay on and be employed to watch out for national parks. Does that make sense? A number of museums in Washington, D.C. have now closed due to lack of funding, such as the African American Museum, the National Zoo. These places used prior year funds to stay open through the new year but closed on January 1st. The National Gallery, which was using an unexpired 2-year and no-year appropriations, closed Thursday. National parks have remained open, but certain areas are closed due to lack of staffing and overflowing toilets. Campgrounds are being shut down for health and safety concerns as vault toilets reach capacity. So the people who live kind of nomadically, the people who go camping, people who are homeless, who live and have been living in these campgrounds are displaced because they're being closed. All right. While the Department of Veteran Affairs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security is funded, so if you work for those departments, you're safe for now. Nutritional programs could be reduced or eliminated at the local level if the shutdown continues. So that means that states may decide to shut down their food programs, their nutritional programs that are going to affect mothers and children. So now you're going to be starving the country if this shutdown continues. There are serious concerns on the Native American reservations where services provided by the federal government ranging from clearing snow from roads to distributing food are affected. The federal court system is set to run out of money on January 11th. You know, the court system that would be trying him is set to run out of money on January 11th, at which point workers will begin to be sent home. Now, that's the end of the article. What does all this equate to? This equates to people who have no money, people whose credit is going to be affected, for the government workers, people whose security clearance is going to be affected, which means if this all does end, it's not going to undo the damage that is done to people's lives personally. And then we wonder why we have shooters in America. We wonder why we have angry people in America. Look at what our government is doing to people. Spearheaded by the person that they chose, because I didn't choose that. But we're all going to be affected. And so, if you are a federal employee, if you are a government employee, I suggest that you prepare yourself, make some plans, do what you need to do, look at your current finances, look at your IRA and things of that nature, and see what you can pull out as soon as possible, because this will be considered a hardship. So there are some savings accounts and things like that will allow you to pull money because of hardship. And if you have health issues that you need to take care of and get paid, medical hardship is another way that you can look at pulling some money out temporarily. This is a travesty. He is literally holding the government hostage. And I'm looking at all of the Republicans who are down with him doing this. Because guess what? They're still getting paid their money. Your chosen leader is abandoning you because he only cares for himself. Precisely. Now, someone wrote something, a pastor wrote something today, and I agree partially with what he said. And he said that that people need to pray for President Trump, and that they don't need to, dishonor him. And then I got to praying. And this is not about dishonoring a man. This is about a man who holds an office of power that is destroying people's lives. This is not personal. This is not personal. I could care less what Trump does with himself personally, because everybody has to work out their own salvation with fear and trembling. And there are enough people around him that could be delivering the gospel to him, but instead they're greedy and they're filling their own pockets. That's a whole other story. But name me one place, somebody tell me, somebody put it down here. Name me one place in the scriptures where the prophets went out and said, all right, everybody, we have a wicked and terrible leader. You guys need to respect him. Show it to me. Show it to me. Show me one place in the scriptures where the prophets went to the people and told the people that they have to honor an evil and wicked leader. I'm waiting. And so what the prophets did admonish the people is, hey, you're going to be in a time of captivity. Go ahead and live your life peaceably, quietly. You're going to be here for a while. Put down stakes, that sort of thing. But I don't recall any prophet telling the people, oh, and yeah, respect this wicked person that's over you. It's not in there. All right. So we have to stop giving people words out of our emotions and how we feel about a situation. We need to stick to the principles of the word of God. All right. This is evil. This is wicked. Again, this is evil and this is wicked. And I am holding accountable the people who are in there right now, Republicans, who are not saying anything and who are not coming together with the other side, the Democrats, regardless of what you feel about the Democrats and their political ideologies. This is about human rights. This is about people's lives. This is about people being able to work and take care of their children and not starve to death. If you cannot come together and figure out an end to this shutdown, that is on you, Republicans. That's on you. The Democrats just got power yesterday. That's not on them. That's on you. All right? So you need to own the responsibility. If you are a member of governing bodies and people elected you, you need to own the responsibility and you need to get the shutdown ended. Because the reality is, as I said before, and I'll say it again, black people, we know how to survive. We know how to take zero and make it something. We do. As for our other sisters and brethren, I don't know. Some of them have never had to go without. All right? If you look at the shutdowns we've had, they haven't been very long shutdowns. This man is threatening a shutdown for months and years. All right? And they've already said the main people who are going to be affected through this shutdown, especially with nutrition issues, is going to be the white single male who uses food stamps. That would be his followers, by the way. So, yeah. I think people are going to be surprised at who is going to demand that this shutdown ends, because they're going to realize, oh, wait a minute. Oh, this isn't affecting the people that I wanted it to affect. It's actually affecting the people who, quote unquote, support the president. So, just want to let you guys know about that. While federal workers go without pay, senior Trump officials will continue to be paid. That is cause for people to get very angry, because you're cutting off their pay, you're damaging their financial history and record, and you're still getting paid. So maybe that's why you don't care. All right. That being said, those of you who are ready and able to, who are not federal workers that have to get approval about whether or not you can go into business, we're going to talk to you tonight about the Entrepreneur's Playbook as an intro. Before we get into that, let's go to Wealth Can't Wait. All right. And we're getting ready to talk about the last thinking concept. And then we'll introduce part 3, create the habits that build wealth. Think, let's play. Yesterday ended last night. Today is a brand new day. Zig Ziglar. One evening, David's then 4-year-old daughter was steaming mad. They had been playing and he noticed that it was 30 minutes past her bedtime. David stopped the fun and told his daughter that she needed to go to bed. She resisted, however, and when David insisted, she told him she would never play with him again. The next morning, she woke up early to see David working in his office. She gave him a hug and sat on his lap and said, "Daddy, let's play a game." A friend of David's works in the cancer ward at the Children's Hospital. She said the amazing thing about children undergoing cancer treatment was their resilience. Even though they hate the treatments, once the treatment is over, they get right back into playing mode. Children have an incredible ability to start each day fresh, renewed, and open to possibility. That is what we call starting at zero. Starting at zero every day is a choice. Children choose it, and we can too. If something goes wrong, even terribly wrong, like a massive government shutdown or a massive business failure, a betrayal by a person or a team you respect and love, or a terrible hiring choice, whatever it is, you will get an invitation to a pity party. Instead of attending, wake up, shake it off, and say to yourself, let's play, let's get in the game. When you face a major setback, you will have a choice. If you view the setback as career ending, it likely will be. What if instead you viewed the setback as an opportunity to reevaluate as a part of your amazing journey? There is genius in starting the day at zero. Approach life each day with a winner's mind and a beginner's mind, and you will learn more, see more, and enjoy more. Building wealth is fun if you allow it to be. The road to wealth is easier if you make it a game. Learn how to have fun building your wealth in the online bonus for this chapter by going to wealthcan'twait.com/game, GAME. Part 3, creating the habits that build wealth. We're going to go over habit number 1 in just a moment as I introduce this chapter. Jim Rohn said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. So you have to decide, do I want to practice simple disciplines every day, or do I want to continue to repeat failure every day? It's up to us. It is the accumulative weight of our disciplines and our judgments that lead us to either fortune or failure. So as we just talked about the government shutdown, most government employees have one of two choices, all right? They can sit it out if they have money saved up, realizing that even in the past with the government shutdowns that things can get really precarious when you don't have savings. So some people took that opportunity to save some emergency money. So maybe they can sit this out and wait for a little bit because they have money saved up. If you don't, you have a couple of options. You can try to pull funds if you can, or you can do like some of the TSA agents who are not waiting for the government to open back up. They're calling in sick and they're taking a part-time job because they know that their bills still need to be paid. You can also begin to work on this time, use this time to get your business organized and file your own business paperwork for those who are not restricted by certain contracts in government that says that you can't have your own business while working for the government. Some of you can, so that's something you can be working on. Gary Keller starts his life-changing Quantum Leap class with this: you don't need to be a disciplined person, you need to master a few disciplines. That was the point where Paul, my fellow author, said, okay, count me in. Interestingly enough, Paul feels like he can be very undisciplined in many aspects of his life, yet he has mastered the disciplines, the habits that empower him to accomplish his dreams. David and Paul adopted 7 powerful habits that have transformed their lives, and you can do the same. Remember, it's not about discipline, it's about the discipline for specific habits. We will explore these habits in the next 7 chapters so that you can transform as well. Habit number 1, live life by design. Somebody can actually put that down there because that's the habit we're going to cover tonight. Live life by design. You are where you are because of who you were, but where you go depends entirely on who you choose to be. Hal Elrod. I think one of the greatest obstacles for people having success in their life is paying attention to people who always want to speak into their ear about who they used to be. Huge obstacle. So you have to learn that if who I was is not conducive to where I am right now or where I'm going, then that means I need to change the people who are in my ear. Doesn't that make sense? I don't need to keep talking to people who are only going to remind me of who I was and not who I am now or where I'm going. Some of these people you cannot get rid of. Some of them are a part of your family, right? Some of them you're going to see every year during the holiday season. But what you can do is you can redirect the conversation so that if they are bringing up things about who you were and how you used to be, right? You just redirect the conversation. That's wonderful that you remember that. Here's what I'm doing now. What are you up to right now? What do you have going on in your life? What's your future look like? What are your plans? Always take a conversation like that and redirect it. You have the ability to control the conversation and where you want the conversation to go. Do you care where you are going? Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind, because if you're going to build a big life, you will almost certainly need a plan. You need a vision for your life. For some of us, this can be one of the most fun habits that we have. One of David's greatest pleasures is to go to a juice store or a coffee shop once a week and contemplate and think on his plan. He takes his vision and goals for his future and determines where he is and how he is doing. Then he thinks about what would improve his life and what he would like for his future. Nothing is more powerful than creating a vision of the near term, the midterm, and the long term future. To design your life with the end in mind is to create a life worth living. Being purposed, even if it's purposefully having fun, scheduling your vacations ahead of work, is the key to achieving what you want at a high level. Life takes the shape of its context. So you can either let the context be something that happens to you or something that you influence and shape. David uses his goals and vision to shape his context and his future. Obviously, he's not in control of every aspect of his future. For example, he cannot control events, and neither can you, such as war or taxes or natural disasters. But on a day to day basis, he can affect what he's doing and where he's going by the choices that he makes. Daily choices made in alignment with your path that you've chosen will drive you toward your annual goals. In shaping your context, you begin to shape your life in the direction of your choosing. David reminds us we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. This is one of the great secrets of life. Our lives are like clay shaped by our environment. The odds are that if you were born in a particular culture, you'll like the foods of that culture, have the worldview of that culture, follow the religion of that culture, and have the economic outcome of your birth. One of the great things about the United States, for the most part, is that we have the opportunity to see cultures blended into a melting pot that is our nation. Exposure to so many cultures gives us the opportunity to choose the financial and career culture that we want. Bring consciousness to your life plan, vision, and destination. One of the gifts of being an army brat, the writer says, and moving more than 10 times before he was 14, is that David got to see many different ways of life. He went to school in Germany, where he lived in at least 5 different cities. He also lived in England and went to school there before coming back to the United States. After David graduated college, he worked for a year, saved up all his money, and then sold everything and hitchhiked around the world for 2 years. He lived on about $20 a day or $7,000 a year. It was an awesome experience, and once again, he was immersed in different cultures and picked up different perspectives. All of this has made it easier for him to understand the concept of context and how we are shaped by our environment, our peers, and our choices. This understanding has made it easier for him to choose to influence his own context. Now, this is interesting because I had a conversation with a white American male today. And his conversation had to do with most white people in this country not having proper context. I was like, really? He said, yeah. He said, the biggest fear that whites have right now is the fear that in 2 generations, he said, for white males, he said, in 2 generations, white males are going to be the minority. They already know they're going to be the minority. And they are fearful because they have not taken the time out to understand what this guy did or had the opportunity to understand because his family was in the military. And he said that their main fear is how homogenous or how multicultural or how brown America is getting, and the fact that they're going to become the ones who stand out from the majority as they become the minority. Well, why would you have to fear unless you wrote all of these laws that disadvantaged people termed minority? And all of those terms are now going to apply to you in 2 generations. See, if you didn't write things that built in imbalances and injustices into your country, then you would not have to worry about becoming a minority. But they already understand the term minority means that there are things in place that are going to put you at a disadvantage, and that disadvantage is now in 2 generations going to come on them. I didn't say it, he did, but he just confirmed everything we've been telling you. All right. And so he said, one of the things he said that stood out to me, he said that in certain parts of the United States, like your Utah, your Wyoming, I think he mentioned, and some other places, he said many of these people have only been around white people. And they have no actual practical relationship with a black person, except for what they see on television, which is problematic. All right. And so, yes, it is sort of like Babylon. If you can hear me, let me know if you can hear me. All right. So, the pivotal moment. In Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a common saying, I hit rock bottom. This is the place where AA knows change will take place. Real, meaningful change. Someone has been drinking for decades. Okay, Pastor Ben says we here. All right. Someone has been drinking for decades, tried to kick the habit a dozen times, but when they hit rock bottom, that terrible place, they are finally ready for change. What is rock bottom? If you do a tiny bit of research, the horror stories flow, ranging from a job loss, a divorce, domestic violence, jail sentences, near death. And some of us have had all of these things happen at one time. That's a rock bottom, okay? When you hit rock bottom, there really isn't anywhere else to go but up. But you don't need to hit rock bottom in order to make a change. In fact, helping others, such as being a sponsor or a big brother, can add value to your life as well as that of others. There are endless volunteer opportunities out here. Pick one that resonates with you and start giving back. He's going to tell us a story here called Mike the Mean Cop. Paul's dad owned a parking garage in the business center of Pittsburgh. The local policemen parked their cars there, stayed warm in the winter, and used it as a meeting place. As a boy, Paul thought it was cool to see what police were like when they weren't giving a ticket or enforcing the law. In general, they were very nice, kind men. That's their experience. That is, except for a cop named Mike. Mike was the meanest cop Paul had ever met. He rarely had a nice word to say. If you were parked in a no waiting zone, all the other cops would sternly say, move along. But Mike would write you the ticket, slap it on your window, and then tell you to move along. Pleas from senior citizens waiting in front of a pharmacy to pick up a prescription all fell on deaf ears. Mike even went as far as routinely giving other cops tickets on their personal cars. As you might guess, even the other cops refused to speak to him. Paul had never met a guy like Mike who was unpleasant all the time. Paul noticed Mike hadn't been by the garage in a while. It turned out Mike had had a heart attack. After months of cardiac rehab, he came back to work. And Paul saw a complete 180-degree change in Mike's behavior. He literally became one of the most pleasant men Paul had ever met. No more tickets were issued. None. Instead, Mike would run into the pharmacy for the senior citizens while they waited. "How do you do, ma'am? Can I get the door for you?" He reunited with his kids, whom he had not spoken with for over a decade. He even became an active grandfather to the grandkids he had never even seen before. Then, about 2 years later, he had a second heart attack and Mike died. For decades, he had been a mean and brooding person until he hit rock bottom. The rock bottom that changed him was a heart attack, and for about 2 years after that, he was a changed man. Paul is fairly athletic and has played sports all his life. He's been in pretty good shape most of his life, but starting in his early 30s, he struggled to keep his weight in check. At 6'1" with a large frame, his ideal weight was about 180, yet he hadn't weighed less than 200 pounds since high school. Instead of his weight, Instead his weight yo-yoed back and forth. As many people do, he tried numerous diets. Every diet he tried worked while he was on it, and then he bounced back bigger than ever after going off the diet. One day he went in for his annual physical weighing over 220 pounds. Paul's blood pressure and cholesterol were normal. All was well except his weight. He was a pretty fit guy, he just had a big belly. The doctor, a slim, energetic guy Paul's age, put his hand on Paul's belly and said, "Go to the cardiac catheterization lab at Cedars. The room is filled with guys 10 years older than you and weighing 10 pounds more. I am well aware that you love food, you love wine, and you like having a good time, but you have to make a choice." It definitely was not a health scare. At that point, Paul had to make a decision. He was going to lose weight and keep it off. He is no longer on a diet. He lost the weight, a couple of pounds each week. The only thing he does is commit to weighing between 185 and 190. Sometimes he's very fit, other times not so much, but his weight does not vary. Every day he gets on his scale, and if he's in the zone, great. He watches what he eats and he exercises, but he doesn't do anything out of the norm. And if he wants the occasional burger, fries, or shake, he has them. But whenever the scale reads 190 or more, he has a vegan shake for breakfast, a salad for lunch, and a moderate healthy dinner with no dessert he increases his cardio until he comes down to at least 187. It only takes a couple of days and is hardly a punishment. He eats dessert, bread, and pasta in moderation, and when the scale says 190, he begins to adjust. What can we learn from these two stories? Number one, don't let something like a major health scare cause you to have to shift your entire life. Don't spend most of your life being rude, angry, mean, disrespectful, bitter, because you don't know how much time you have left. You might not get a story like Mike, where Mike had a heart attack and then he was able to change his ways, but then he still died 2 years later. So you don't want to waste your time on the negative. No regrets. Want to get to the end of your journey without regret? Learn from others. Learn from their regrets. Some of the things that we have had to learn in our life, we should not want to learn it by experience. We should want to learn it from listening to the consequences of others. I know there's certain things I don't need to learn by experience. I just need to listen to wise people who lived through it and pay attention to what they tell me. Here's one. This is a relationship bonus. Bonus. All right? If you are in a relationship and the relationship ended, and you go get in another relationship and the relationship ended, and you go get in another relationship and the relationship ended, guess what? Guess who you probably need to look at? Yourself. All right? And I put up a post on my page a couple weeks ago, and it keeps getting shared. And it says, stop replacing your healing with people. That post struck home with me because when I was younger, I realized that that was what I was doing in my own life. I was replacing my healing with people. I was replacing my healing and my understanding of what happened in a relationship by just going out and getting into another relationship. Thankfully, I learned that at a young age that it wasn't people, it was me. I had to work on me. And then when I started working on me and not blaming anybody else for me choosing bad people or for me choosing toxic relationships, when I worked on me, then God answered me with a healthy relationship. That's how that worked. I never blamed people for my relationships going south. But I had to recognize that it was a pattern, that before I was processing what happened with the last relationship, I was in another relationship before I could even process what happened with the last one. So, it's a very good point. Stop replacing your healing with people and go through the process of healing. If you need to learn how to be by yourself and get to know yourself and get to know what you like and what you don't like, then go through that process. But stop blaming other people. All right? Yes, there are things that people do to us, but it also has to do with us taking a look at, why do I keep following a certain pattern? Why do I keep getting drawn to a certain person? Why do I keep getting different people treating me the exact same way? They didn't know each other, but they all came to the same conclusion that this behavior was something that I would accept. So now I got to figure out, what is it in me that is making these different people treat me the exact same way? Now I need to work on me. What am I projecting that's making these people, who are all different, think that this behavior towards me is okay? So I had to learn to not replace my healing with someone. Okay? I had to get healed in my own soul before I decide to connect with another soul. All right? Learn from others, learn from their regrets. There's an amazing book titled The Top 5 Regrets of Dying, written by Bronnie Ware, Bronnie, a hospice nurse who cared for and surveyed people in their last few months of life. She found that dying people typically shared the same regrets. She lists the top 5 as follows. Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. I'll read those again. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. That's a huge one. Number 3. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. There's a lot of people dealing with health problems because of number 3. They don't have the courage to express their feelings. Therefore, they let their feelings bottle up on the inside. And then sometimes that bottled up feeling actually turns into physical illness within, or they blow up at the wrong person. And you give the wrong person all of the vitriol that you was reserving, that you could never tell the person you wanted to tell off, but you tell off the other person because Some people will take your pain. They'll let you let off your steam on them, even though they're not the person that you are upset with. That's still not healthy, by the way. That's still not healthy. So we got to learn how to express our feelings. We have to learn how to be true to ourselves. We have to be happy for ourselves. There are a lot of people living to make other people happy, and they are gravely disappointed. And they spend their entire lives making other people happy. When inside, half of the stuff they're doing to make other people happy is not doing anything for them personally. And so they live a very discouraged and disappointed life internally because they spent their entire life making other people happy. Now, there are some people, that's the joy they get out of life. They love to make other people happy, but that's not everybody. All right? So, the first habit, live life by design. Begin with the end in mind. Let's start the Entrepreneur's Handbook. More than 100 proven strategies, tips, and techniques to build a radically successful business. This book is not by chapter, it is by principle. So let's begin. Principle number 1. And I talk about this principle all the time because it's true. Find a marketplace challenge that needs to be solved or improved. Find a marketplace challenge that needs to be solved or improved. All right? Solved or improved. It's typical in the nation's colleges and business schools for the students to rank their professors. I've been fortunate. At Babson, the nation's leading college for the study of entrepreneurship, I usually come in at or near the top of the students' lists. But it is also typical for professors to rank their students. It isn't published anywhere, but rest assured we do keep track. So what do my rankings reveal? 2 big things. Number 1, it is easier to teach graduate students than the CEOs who attend my executive education class. Even though these CEOs are accomplished and learn quickly, the grad students learn faster. 2, it is still easier to teach undergraduates than all of those smart people going for their MBAs. When I tell people this, they ask the follow-up question: do you think you would be more effective teaching high school students compared to those in college? My answer is yes. Some of them, meaning to be funny, go further and ask, does this mean junior high school students would learn even faster than those in high school? And elementary school students would outperform those in 7th and 8th grade? I know they are joking, and even though I have never taught anyone that young, my answer is always a theoretical yes. I will expand more on this point in a minute, but my thinking is simple. The younger you are, the more open you are to new ideas. Unless you're a really stubborn young person. Because I've taught 3 years old to 18, 19 in some cases. The younger you are, the more open you are to new ideas. As we get older, the more we think we know. The problem with that, as Mark Twain pointed out, is clear. It ain't so much the things we don't know that get us in trouble. It's the things we know that just ain't so. I knew from teaching that the more open you are to new ideas, the easier it is to be entrepreneurial. And I've always believed that the younger you are, the easier it is to develop the entrepreneurial skills you're going to need going forward. But I didn't know that for sure. But then I got my chance to find out a few years ago. My grandson Kenny was in the 5th grade at the Buckley Country Day School in Long Island, and his class was doing a unit on business and entrepreneurship. Kenny volunteered me to come into his class and talk about what I do. Kenny's mother, a lawyer who once worked with the negotiation expert Roger Fisher of Getting to Yes fame, was excited but concerned. Dad, they're only 10 and 11 years old. What can you possibly say to them from your college and graduate school classes that they are actually going to understand? Buckley wants you to fill 90 minutes. How are you going to hold kids' attention for an hour and a half? Believe it or not, this is difficult if you don't know what you're doing. Beth then paused and gave me a look that I recognized from her teenage years, one that conveyed, "You are totally clueless, Dad." But she simply asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I told her it was going to be a piece of cake. I was going to use the same opening day presentation that I had given to my students. Beth looked even more horrified, but that is exactly what I did. I stood up in front of Kenny's class, and after we spent a few minutes getting to know each other, I showed them a plain drinking mug and asked what they could do to alter or change the mug so that it would be worth more in value. In business schools, the concept is known as enhancing value. To fifth graders, the idea is described as making more money. They got very excited and in minutes came up with the following ideas for the cup. They said they could add color, they could add designs, they could add the name of the school, they could have two handles instead of one, they could add a thermometer to tell you the temperature of the liquid inside. They passed test number one. They truly did enhance the value of the mug. For my second exercise, I pulled out my smartphone. Okay, you all know what this is. Most had a phone of their own, and they were familiar with the device. Let's do an exercise to see who is the most innovative. I divided the class into teams of 4 and gave them 15 minutes to answer this question. It is 5 years from now. How will you be using your cell phones? You want to compile a list of as many functions as you can. You cannot believe what they imagine. Not only would they be able to watch any television program or movie whenever they wanted, everything would be instantly customizable. They would put in their preferences and shows would be recorded automatically. Songs would be compiled instantly into playlists and everything would be voice activated. The list went on and on. Then I had them do exactly the same thing that I always have my college graduate and CEO students do during the next part of the exercise. I said, now that you have forecasted where the market is going, I want you to think of as many products as you can that people will want to use in the future. Again, they were remarkable. They produced more ideas faster than any other group I've ever taught. In fact, I think one of their ideas is going to make someone a lot of money. Let me tell you about it. Say you're about to go shopping at a big box store, Target, Home Depot, Best Buy, etc. These stores are so huge, some are 3 full acres, and it can be difficult to find anything. As you enter the store, let's say a super Walmart, which sells everything a typical one does, plus groceries, you receive an email on your phone asking if you would like to download a detailed map of the store to see what is on sale. If you click yes, not only do you get a map complete with a search function looking for cereal, it's in aisle 22 on the left, but as you approach the cereal aisle, you are offered a coupon via your cell phone for $1 off a box of Cheerios. Linger in the front lawn of mowers for more than 90 seconds, and you will get a coupon off for $100 off any riding mower you buy today. Your phone offers to set up a side-by-side comparison of the models you are considering. It is a wonderful idea and it is definitely feasible. I checked. It's surprisingly easy to do with all of the existing technology. The idea satisfies one of my criteria for success. It creates a win-win situation, actually a win-win-win in this case. The customer wins because he gains an easier way to navigate the store, to receive targeted items, all right, and targeted discounts. The product seller wins because he's able to provide an incentive to an interested customer to get him to buy. And the store wins because it is creating value for its customers to keep coming to the store, which will increase sales. Someone I believe is going to be extremely successful with this idea. So, in closing today, what have we just learned? Well, first, his grandson and his classmates are super smart. Second, it really is easier to teach entrepreneurship to young people. So, on Fridays, as we talk about and teach entrepreneurship, please add to your dial, bring in your grandsons and your granddaughters and your cousins and your nieces and your nephews and everybody else. Got it? Good. Why would these fifth graders come up with more ideas than my college and graduate students or CEOs typically do in the same amount of time? There are three reasons, and they are something to keep in mind if you are older than 10 or 11 years old. Number one, the older you are, the more you've seen, so there's a tendency to be skeptical and say, that will never work because. Whenever you or someone else comes up with a new concept. Number two, since you are usually worried that you could look foolish when you come up with a new idea and it fails, you tend to stick to the safest suggestions. But when you are 10 or 11, you're not cursed with self-doubt. And number three, they were thinking about entrepreneurship in the most effective and productive way. If you want to become more entrepreneurial, come up with a better mousetrap, as those fifth graders did. Instead of thinking about a new revolutionary idea that's not already in the marketplace, start by improving something that already exists to solve a real problem that people have. One of the first things that invariably happens in my class when we talk about goods or services is someone will say, I have an idea. I'm not surprised that they do because ideas are easy to come by. But you don't want to start with just a completely new idea. You want to start with a market need, which is just a fancy way of saying, come up with a better mousetrap. For a lot of people, that statement is counterintuitive. They ask, shouldn't you start by coming up with an idea that has never existed? And the answer is no. Here's why. It's natural when you are pondering how you can create a product or service to want to think about coming up with a unique idea. It would seem to make sense. After all, you're trying to create something new. Why shouldn't you start with something unique? The reason you shouldn't is because it's remarkably inefficient, and it's inefficient because ideas are easy to come by. I will let you prove it to yourself. Do this exercise later. Take 2 minutes and write down all the things that you want to see created, whether or not you would want to have anything to do with creating them. For example, that jetpack that would allow you to fly to work and the device that will get the dishes from the table to the dishwasher. Ready, set, go. If you are like most people, you came up with at least 10 ideas within 2 minutes. As I said, generating the idea is easy. The problem is you can't do much with most of those ideas because many of them are not feasible. We don't know yet how to get those dishes into the dishwasher by themselves. Others are going to take much more money than you can easily lay your hands on. The cost of mass producing jetpacks that allow you to fly will be huge. While the vast majority of the ideas you generate are probably intriguing, odds are you don't have the necessary skill, talent, or even interest in making them a reality. All this explains why you don't want to necessarily start with a unique idea. You want to begin by improving a concept that already exists. What did Uber do? Uber improved the concept that already exists, getting people around, travel. What did Airbnb do? Airbnb already improved the concept that already exists, finding people a place to stay temporarily anywhere in the world. What did Dash do recently? Dash took on Uber and Uber Eats by helping companies that normally don't deliver food be able to deliver food. They already improved on an idea that already existed. There are three specific reasons why you don't want to start with a unique idea. For one thing, you won't have to spend a lot of time explaining what you have. The Polaroid camera was eventually a huge success, but it took a while. They needed to educate the market. Everyone knew what a camera was and could imagine a better one. But try to sell a camera that developed its own film took a lot of explaining. People needed to understand what it was and be convinced that it actually worked. And now, Polaroids, believe it or not, are back. Second, it's a problem if your idea is a solution to no known problem. For example, it's wonderful that you want to create a business newspaper better than the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure you could. The fact is, it is already an extremely good business newspaper, and the universe is not clamoring for anything better. They think existing mousetraps like the journal is just fine. Finally, when you start an idea, you have to go out and find customers. This is no easy task. When you begin with a market need, you already have them. They're the people who are looking for a product or service like yours, one that solves a problem they already have. As we have just seen, instead of trying to create a radically new product or service, it's always easier to start by trying to solve an existing problem. If you go down this route, and I recommend that you do, you will probably end up building off something that already exists. All right? So when we come back, we will finish up the summary on this point, and then we'll go into principle 2. All right? I want to thank you for your time and attention. Hopefully this has been helpful to you tonight. If you're an entrepreneur, start thinking about improving on a product that already exists. How can you make it better? How can you tweak it and make it better? All right? Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness, so please be light. We are back on Sunday in our very first service of the year, and so I'm excited about that. And I will be ministering from the series Superior Things, and we will be in the book of Hebrews. So if you want to join us for that, it's going to be Sunday, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can view us either through YouTube or Periscope. Take care, have a wonderful Sabbath, and God bless.